to Leitner. Puts it up.
You're listening to the Culture State Podcast.
Get ready. Woo!
Welcome back to the Culture State Podcast. I am Chris Lee. That is my man over there, 100 grand.
Dennis Cox, that's right, 100 grand. Put it down. By the way, candy bars only. Candy bars only. That's the only 100 grand I'll accept. I take that
yes,
back.
Sir.
$100,000. I'll gladly accept that.
Yeah, if you take the candy bars, I'll take the actual 100 grand.
I mean, we could split them. I mean, the 100 grand comes in two pieces. We could split the 100 grand and the 100 grand. I'm just saying.
You could literally just keep the candy bars because I'm not eating it. It's probably going to have milk in it anyway.
Probably.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
You're on this cleanse. You're looking good. I mean, we're still thick, but we're slim and thick. That's the thing.
You know what I'm saying? Like we're slim thick.
Exactly. We're slim thick. I like that. We're slim thick now. Yeah. Now, one thing we can do, Chris, that we always can continue to do every Tuesday, $10.99, Papa Murphy's Pizza. Any Papa Murphy's location, just order online. Any large pizza on Tuesday, $10.99. Papa Murphy's. Change the way you pizza. Give them a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Papa Murphy's. Make sure you do that every Tuesday.
And you can do it without cheese, just like me and you both did. Right?
Well, you
did have cheese on yours.
Yeah, of course I had cheese on mine.
Oh, okay. No, you just didn't have meat on yours. That's what it was. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. My girlfriend's going. My girlfriend this year is going full pescatarian this year, mostly vegetarian, but she'll have some fish and stuff. So she's going full pescatarian. So I'm adapting, having a lot more vegetarian stuff, Chris.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're both down. 20. Yeah, we're both down.
It's the next step. It's the next step for you.
I ain't going that far. I ain't going that far.
No, I'm just saying, there's other steps to go, but you never know. It might make you feel really good if you did. But you're about to say we're both down. I'm down about 22 pounds.
Yeah,
you're down about 20 pounds.
Yeah, I'm down actually a little over 20 now. So, and this all started before the new year. This is not a New Year's resolution thing. So, it just happens to be at this time. But I
can see the difference in your face. I can see the difference in my face. It's going to be a really good looking year for Culture State.
I mean, it was a good looking year in 2020. It's going to be
but even
2021, it's going to be a great looking year in 2020.
Put a little seasoning on it this year.
Oh, a little kosher salt. Sprinkle that on there. Now, Chris, we actually get an opportunity in this conversation, this week's episode, to talk to one of the voices of our childhood, Tony Schiavone. For us as wrestling fans that grew up, you and I both enjoyed watching WCW back in the day. And it was so fun having a conversation hearing Tony Schiavone. But it's always nice when you get to reflect back on times of our past, because oftentimes that feeling of nostalgia cannot kind of not only drum up those past feelings and those emotions, those memories that we have, but it can also, in a weird way, kind of give us that inspiration to recreate those feelings in other areas of our lives and create those memories. And being able to reflect back on those voices of our childhood that we grew up with, whether it's, Tony Schiavone from wrestling, people in this area remember still listen to Woody Durham, call UNC athletics. Our good friend Mick Mixon is retiring. He just had his last game as the Carolina Panthers play-by-play voice. So people that were young growing up may listen to Mick Mixon on the radio, hearing Steve Smith catch touchdown passes or Stephen Davis, running, whatever it may be. Those are the voices of their childhood. Those memories are always going to stick with us.
Certain things, just like we're going to have Tony Schiavone on, certain things just remind you of just certain sports, right? So when I watch AEW right now and I hear Tony Schiavone, and this is no disrespect to Jim Ross, because I love Jim Ross, but I watched a little bit more WCW and early on, and Jim Ross was more so on the WWF side.
Yep.
And when I switched over to WWF, then he became that voice, him and Jerry the King Lawler. But the first voice that was iconic to me in wrestling, that just sounds like wrestling to me when I hear this voice, is Tony Schiavone's voice. And so, hearing AEW, watching AEW, I should say, over the last couple years, it's just been really refreshing because it brings up those feelings of watching wrestling when I was 6, 7, 8 years old and hearing Tony Schiavone on the call. I know for me, personally, living in Greensboro, when I think about all-time sports anchors, I think about a guy by the name of Mike Hogwood, rest in peace. He was amazing at what he did. He also did a lot of work for Raycom Sports after he was done with the local television thing. So you may have also seen him because he was on ACC coverage and things like that with Raycom Sports before that thing was dissolved. But Mike Hogwood was just amazing at sports, and he was one of the reasons why I wanted to become a sports anchor. And what's interesting is I got a chance to meet him before he passed at the women's ACC tournament in Greensboro, maybe in 2016, 2017. He passed a little bit after, maybe a few months after that. Had a chance to speak to his son. His son is my age, and didn't realize we had all kinds of like similar, things in common that we both love. And he said his dad was watching me and knew of me and thought I did a great job before. And I didn't even know, Wow. And so that was cool for me to be able to meet one of my idols before he passed and to hear from his son that his dad did know who I was and respected the work that I was doing and how I was building at that time. And so when I think of great voices of sports broadcasting, Mike Hogwood is definitely one of those guys for me as well.
I know we think on a national level, someone that just passed away recently, John Madden. I remember being a kid. Yeah, he made it fun. And he was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to get into broadcasting in some way, just because he's talking about football, a sport I enjoy, but he's making it sound like he's just an everyman person. He's making it sound fun. He was the reason why oftentimes I would tune into games. Like I couldn't care less about the Cardinals playing the Cowboys, but he and Pat Summerall made it fun to enjoy a game like that. Now you see that matriculate into broadcasting today. Everyone tries to emulate John Madden in some sort of way. It's like, guess what? There's only one. But he's so original in that regard. That's actually something that's very hard to be as well, as us being original nowadays, like being your own voice. We see oftentimes a recreation in some way, shape, or form across all forms of broadcasting, whether it's how we broadcast, like the tone of the voice, the cadence, whatever it is. There's some sort of recreation in some way, or people are pulling from different areas. It's very hard to be original. So those original people that we heard, again, they're just fantastic. You talk about Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross. Some people that are older than us, maybe it was Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura was their broadcast back in the day. And some people that are older, they love going back and listen to that. My best friend, his dad is from Southern California. He's a huge LA Dodgers fan. Vin Scully was his voice. Yeah. That's what he grew up listening to was Vin Scully. So there's just so many different iconic voices across just broadcasting in general that just resonate with us to today.
Really quick, I want to add on to what you were saying as far as originality is concerned. If you think about like a lot of the wrestling today, a lot of these guys are either remixes of The Rock, remixes of Stone Cold Steve Austin, or remixes of Shawn Michaels. Like legit, and so you're right. Like those were like really iconic people, and you can see it. Like, even though we talked about, people talk about the Young Bucks and how they, mimic the Hardy Boys, or they remind you of the Hardy Boys in their style, but they're both two Shawn Michaels if you think about it. And Adam Cole, he's a Shawn Michaels. Ricky Starks, as he's coming up, he's a young Rock, with the way he kind of presents himself. And so same thing with what I do when it comes down to sports broadcasting. A lot of these companies want you to be more and more and more like Stuart Scott. Yeah. When they're asking for you to do things a certain type of way or to present yourself a certain type of way. And shout out to Stuart Scott, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Reynolds High School, went to Carolina, also worked at WRAL for a couple years as a news reporter. So, one of North Carolina's greatest ever, and one of the greatest ever, sports broadcasters. And so you're right with the originality, because you see a lot of remixes of those guys. People could call me a Stuart Scott remix, and I wouldn't care, because Stuart Scott was freaking amazing. So, I loved him. Shout outs to all of those guys. And he was also a voice of my childhood as well.
Yeah, likewise. I loved watching. That's when Sports Center for me was like must watch, because they let the personalities in a way stand out. And that's what made it must. And Stuart Scott's like, I'm going to do my thing. This is who I am. If you don't like it, tough. And That's why he's still one of the most respected and most loved to ever do it. So speaking of one of the most loved and most respected ever to do it, someone that we love, this is a dream come true for us, Chris Lee. Let's get to our man, Tony Schiavone, right after this.
Welcome back to another episode of the Culture State Podcast. And when you think about the great voices in pro wrestling, especially from when I grew up, going to so many different wrestling events, especially in Winston-Salem when WCW used to come there a lot, I think about Tony Schiavone for sure. And when AEW started back up, it was cool to see that he was going to be a part of the announce team there. So Tony Schiavone, welcome to the Culture State Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. Dennis, good to see you. And it's great being here. And the reason it's great being here is a number of reasons, not only talking about the past, but my past directly links to the state of North Carolina for many, many reasons. Where I met my wife, where all of our children were born. It's where my passion for pro wrestling began at the Greensboro Coliseum years ago as a fan. So I love the state of North Carolina. Well, I do need to say this though, with the exception of a couple of things. I grew up in Virginia.
Likewise.
So I was a big University of Virginia fan. So I hated the North Carolina Tar Heels, hated Dean Smith, hated everything about them.
Okay. All right.
I was a big Cavaliers fan, so I didn't like them.
Okay.
Also, I was for 11 years I did the Braves AAA team in Gwinnett.
Yeah.
They were the Richmond Braves at one time. Then they became the Gwinnett Braves, and we played the Durham Bulls every year. We played them a lot. And I really didn't like the Durham Bulls at all. So other than that, love the state of North Carolina. I really do. It's really part of my past. Really, really is.
Shout out to our good friend Patrick Keenis, play-by-play man for the Durham Bulls.
Yeah, Patrick's a great guy, man. He still do NC State women's basketball?
I believe he does.
Okay. I think he was doing it while I was there. Patrick's a good guy, man.
Yeah,
I was gonna say some of those are gonna be fighting words for a few people in the Triangle area, but we'll let them kind of listen to the rest of the interview. I'm sure you'll smooth it out.
Sure.
But I want to explore a few things. So you said you met your wife here, and your kids were all born here. Just going back to the Crockett days.
Right. Yeah, it's going back to I met Lois in Greensboro in 1981 when I first started working in Greensboro, and I was working with the Greensboro Hornets. South Atlantic League team. I think they're now the Grasshoppers. Yeah. And they were the Hornets back then, the Yankee single A team. That was my first job out of college. And I met Lois in Greensboro that year. We got married. And then we moved to Charlotte, where I started doing AA baseball for the Charlotte O's. And that was Baltimore's AA team in the Southern League back in the early 80s. And that's where all of our children were born. We had 5 kids. They were born. One was born at Presbyterian in Charlotte. The other were at Charlotte Memorial, which I think now is Carolina Medical Center, I believe. And then that was right before I moved. I moved out of Charlotte in '89 to move to Connecticut for the WWE. Then moved to Atlanta a year later, and I've been here ever since. So that's kind of the quick story of my time in the Carolinas. Spent a lot of time there, though. Love it. Greensboro, Charlotte. The Raleigh area, still some of my favorite areas, really. I've got friends all over, as you might imagine.
What about the state of North Carolina? You said you fell in love with wrestling at the Greensboro Coliseum. You're working with Jim Crockett Promotions. What made the state of North Carolina so hot and so special when it came to working in that territory?
The Crockett's were so entrenched. I'm sure, Dennis, you're talking about wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah, right. The Crockett's were so entrenched into the Carolinas. They were a big part of the business scene in Charlotte. And it just, they were based out of Charlotte, but they did their TV shows for many, many years at WRAL in Raleigh.
Yep.
Then they moved them to Charlotte. Then they started moving them all over, but it was like their home base. The Carolinas were. And when I say the Carolinas, I mean, obviously Charlotte and the fans in South Carolina and in Virginia. To me, that was the kind of like the big three. But that always, it felt like, to the fans, I think it felt like they were a part of them. The Crockett's were Carolina based, and they were a part of the fans. So it's something they could reach out to. For me, and again, I lived in Virginia, so I started going to wrestling events in Roanoke, and I would go to the Richmond Coliseum. But we wanted to see something really special. We would make the trek down to Greensboro, because Greensboro was the biggest venue in the Carolinas as far as numbers of fans. And I guess it still is.
Yeah.
I mean, we recently worked the Greensboro Coliseum, and I'm thinking, holy, this place is gigantic.
Yeah.
And obviously it was the home of the,
There.
yeah, it's the home of the ACC basketball tournament too. So I would go down to Greensboro. We're talking about the late 70s now. I would go down to Greensboro and see the Greensboro, the matches at the Greensboro Coliseum. So to me, that was always very, very special to go into the Carolinas to see that. And it just made Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling very, very special for me.
I wonder, did you ever work an event with the Crockett's at WRL, or was that like a little bit before your time?
That was before me.
Okay.
When I started working for the Crockett's, they had moved completely out of the TV studio to doing Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. They started doing it on the road. They would do it like in Spartanburg. They would do it in Salisbury, North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina, Greenwood, South Carolina. They would, like a radius of Charlotte, they would record it. We did some at the Dorton Arena, as I recall.
Yeah.
But WRAL was, and I sent a note to Dick Bourne of Mid-Atlantic Gateway, plug out to him and his website. If you're a big fan of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in the past, you need to check out that website. I sent a note to him this morning, and I said, when did Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling move from WRAL to the Charlotte area? Because they did tape them in Charlotte at a TV station there for a while, and he never answered. I don't know when that date was, Chris, but they did move, and that was before my time.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because actually I used to wrestle for like 4 years independently before my television career really took off. And one of the things that my bosses wanted to tell me immediately was the history at WRL, and that Ric Flair and Steamboat started there at that studio that I currently do sports in. And so I was wondering if you were ever a part of that, but I know that you did a lot of events at the Dorton Arena as well. And so with PNC being the new iteration of what that is, what are some of your experiences in Raleigh and some of those bigger events, and how will AEW coming to the PNC Arena kind of bring up those memories for you of some of those big time events that you covered back in the past?
Well, first of all, congratulations for getting out of wrestling. You made the good move.
People who are in wrestling always say that. Yeah.
Yeah. It can be a miserable sport, man. I love it. It's my life, but it really takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Dick Bourne just answered me, so I will call this up as we're talking. And the late summer of 1981, Jim Crockett Promotions moved their television tapings from longtime home of WRAL to WPCQ TV in Charlotte, North Carolina. So there you go.
Okay, cool.
So that's when it happened. Anyway, so what were we? We were Dorton Arena. Here's what I remember about Dorton Arena more than anything else. The Dorton Arena had no air conditioning, and for some reason, I don't even think it had heating. But we would run there in the dead of the summer, and we would sweat. It was the most uncomfortable because we had the TV lights and everything.
Yeah.
We had a good time. We had great TV shows. We had a great crowd. And if you watch back the old tapings of Dorton Arena, you will see that, man, it looked good on TV, all the windows and everything.
Yeah.
But man, it was miserable to do TV there. We just sweat our asses off. And, so that's what I remember most about it. I remember being very uncomfortable and just sweating and having to have a towel with you when you're on camera, and that's what I remember.
PNC is a lot more comfortable. I will say that you'll be very comfortable.
I'm sure it is. It's the whole. Now, I can also tell you this. I worked. Let me tell you another Raleigh story. I worked for a radio while I did the games for the Greensboro Hornets. I worked for a radio station in Greensboro, WKEW. And so during the off season that year, I covered ACC basketball.
Oh,
so
nice.
I covered the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels at Reynolds Coliseum.
Nice.
All right. So I remember getting in my car. The Wolfpack beat the Tar Heels that night. And I remember getting in my car and turning on the radio and listening to Woody Durham on the way back, right? And I never will forget Woody doing his post-game show. And I think he was up high at the old Reynolds Coliseum. I don't think he was down at courtside. Matter of fact, I'm sure he was up high. He was kind of perched over. And I never will forget him saying, I appreciate the Wolfpack fans and their enthusiasm, but I wish they would leave me alone. Because they were hammering Woody, man. They were hammering. So I remember, where the Wolfpack played a long time ago. But I really look forward to being at PNC Arena. And this is where the hockey team plays, right?
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, that's where the Hurricanes play. And
Yeah,
I'm sure by then, when you were covering those games, you know that there was no cheering in the press box.
Yeah, I knew that.
Didn't like the Carolina Tar Heels.
Exactly. Yeah. No cheering, and in my case, booing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No cheering, no booing.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of obviously Raleigh, Greensboro, Charlotte, those being the three big areas in the state of North Carolina, especially when it comes to pro wrestling, is there anything that made each of those cities a little bit more distinct from the other?
Well, to me, Charlotte was always the biggest of all the cities. Obviously, it had, I think, and I don't know comparatively, Charlotte to the Research Triangle area, the number of people, but it was always a bigger area to me. Greensboro was more, Greensboro was more of a blue collar factory town, I guess. Yeah. Cone Mills and all that there. And to me, Raleigh being in the research area was kind of hoity-toity, the capital and all that. That's just my feeling.
I told you, Dennis.
Okay.
I told you.
Chris has said this. Chris has stated this.
I'm from Greensboro, so and I moved to Raleigh. I was just like, man, people in Raleigh they're a little different. Okay,
I know. I'm going to tell you this too. Okay, you can't compare Durham with Raleigh because to me, when you think of Durham, you think of tobacco. Wonder why, huh? So, but to me, it's like. I hate to say this, I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail. The Durham Bull fans think they invented minor league baseball.
Yes.
Okay. And you even listen, you even go in the elevator there at the DBAP, and it says, welcome to the most iconic minor league team in America. And I'm thinking, dude, Bull Durham, the movie, was in the 80s. Okay. Yeah. That was years ago. Get over yourself. All right.
Still riding it.
All right. So they are. So yeah, I just, so anyway, the Raleigh area was always kind of like, hoity-toity. But I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's a wonderful area. I would love to live in the Raleigh area. I really would. I would love to. I think it's a great place. My wife and I, my wife many times would go with me to Durham from Charlotte. From Gwinnett, when we played the Durham Bulls on a weekend, and we would spend the weekend there, and we would go to Chapel Hill because Lois spent, I think, a couple of semesters there in Chapel Hill. She got her degree at UNCG and then Appalachian. But we would have brunch in Chapel Hill. We love that area. I would love to live there. I think it's really one of the nicest areas of America. I think it's really, really cool.
I went to UNCG, and
did you really?
So that's cool that your wife is also an alum. But yeah, that's cool.
Chris, she went to UNCG about the time probably your grandmother did.
Is this what in the 80s?
Yeah, she went in the 80s. Yeah, she 80s, sure did.
Okay.
Well, actually, went in the 70s.
In 70s, okay.
Yeah, she would graduate in the 70s and graduated then I got her degree in Appalachian. Finished it out there.
Nice.
She worked for the Greensboro Police Department. She worked for campus police. She was notorious.
That's awesome. I didn't know that the Schiavones were so connected to Greensboro. That's awesome.
Yeah. Every time we go to Greensboro, you know what we get? Yum Yum's
Stamies?
hot dogs.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I didn't know if you were gonna get Stamies.
Oh no, we've had Stamies. Yeah, I know, but Yum Yums are like a fixture in our family.
Yeah. So Dennis, next time we go to Greensboro, I've been telling Dennis about some of the spots there, there and also Winston-Salem. Yeah. So I got to take you over to Yum Yums at some point. So right there on campus.
Right
there on campus. All right. So outside of that, like AEW, I've been really enjoying what I've been watching for AEW last couple of years. And there was a stretch of time with you not being in wrestling.
Yeah.
directly. But I wanted to ask about, just coming back to AEW. I know there was like a little bit of time with MLW, but what has changed in the wrestling business, and how have you had to like readjust to wrestling when you got back in it when AEW kind of came around?
Well, wrestling has changed a great deal, Chris. I think since you've been in wrestling, you know that it has changed from what used to be a more of a match sport to a more high flying, take risk, acrobatic type sport. I mean, it seems like the fans are just waiting for someone to pull a table out from underneath the ring.
Yeah.
And it seems like that there's a lot of dives. A lot of dives.
Yes.
Okay. Excalibur calls them tope suicidas, which now become the way to call them. It used to be suicide dives, but tope suicida. And it's to the point sometimes where I see it, and sometimes I wonder, we're doing it so much, does it cease to have them mean anything?
Is it special anymore?
Right. It's not special anymore. But then again, every time they do it, the fans go crazy and they love it. So the fans are there, I think, not only to see the storylines, but I think fans love seeing the quote unquote high spots, which it used to not be that way. It used to, the high spots were cool, but fans were really after to see a good match and a story and blood. And that was one of the reasons I love going to the Greensboro Coliseum, because they would always bleed there. And they wouldn't necessarily always bleed in Roanoke and in Richmond, but they would bleed in Greensboro. Big show. A lot of people going to bleed. Yeah. So it's more, I'm not going to call it a stunt show because I know some people have done it that way. It's not a stunt show. These are not stunt men, but they just do a lot of crazy things now that the fans really love. And that's changed it. In addition, it is no longer an arena-based sport. It is a television show, much like everything else has become. Listen, everything's become a television show.
Right.
Listen, I live in Georgia, and I worked for the Georgia Bulldogs for 16 years on their broadcast team. And I know what college football has become. It's become a big TV show for ESPN. It's no longer, when you used to watch me stand up and do the interviews for Jim Crockett Promotions, the local interviews for Jim Crockett Promotions, the whole show was an infomercial to get you to come to the arena. That's what it was. It wasn't about the wrestling, because the wrestling didn't matter. It was about the interviews to get you to build the characters, come to the arena. Now it's a TV show. We build from week to week, episodic. Back then, it was to try to get you to come to the arena. So that's really a lot of the changes, not only in ring, as far as what the wrestlers do, try to do, attempt to do, and a lot of times do, but also the focus of what we do as far as the show is concerned.
I think also as well is that now you're just seeing people can follow along, not even watch the show. The way things are posted on social media now, you can catch clips of matches and see those high spots that you mentioned,
right?
And just follow along that way. But it still amazes me in pro wrestling how you can still go back to the quote unquote basics or the old school. I think about the Bryan Danielson Minoru Suzuki match that happened a couple months ago.
Right.
They never left the mat. Outside maybe like one move. There was like maybe one suplex. Everything else was just on the mat. And it was one of the best matches I've ever seen. Yeah, so sometimes it's like, you know what? Still playing into that old school stuff can still work. Do you still find that today? Like those people that tap into that can still get the audience to react?
Yeah, Dennis, I do. I think a good match is a good match. And it doesn't matter where it is. And Danielson and Suzuki are just tremendous strikers and are they just know how to wrestle. And they hate to use cliches, but they are a throwback to old school. And I love that match. And I agree with you. You could have a great match without diving through the ropes or using a table. You know, I really think ECW and what they presented kind of changed the way wrestling was perceived. Mm-hmm. And I really think in many ways, if you take a look back in the 90s, take a look at WCW, then WWF and ECW. I think the ECW style has survived longer than than any, or really changed wrestling. And I never saw the old ECW stuff until I started doing my podcast with Conrad, and I've watched some of it, and I absolutely love it. I love what they did. But again, it goes back to what you were saying with Suzuki and Danielson. It goes back to building a good storyline, regardless if you're on the mat or flying in the air. Arn Anderson said, who's one of the funniest guys in the world, and still lives in Charlotte, by the way. He's been he grew up in Rome, Georgia area, but he's been in Charlotte forever, since the 80s.
Nice.
And Arn, who was the funniest guy ever, I said, Arn, you've always stayed on the mat. You never did anything off the top rope. He said, because you can't pin anybody in the air. and I thought about that. And he's right. You got to be on the mat to pin someone, right? So
very true.
That was a good way of putting it. But back to your point, anything that tells a good story is a great match, and they did that night.
I want to ask you about the way AEW does certain things that they do.
Yeah.
I love the concept of dark, mainly because you give a lot of folks who aren't contracted, who are trying to earn their way through the wrestling business in the independent scene, and we don't have the territories like we used to, so there's not a lot of high level places where guys can go work and learn. But AEW gives guys like that opportunities to learn how to work on television, to be against higher level talent. What are some of the things that you like about the AEW doing that maybe wasn't around in WCW or WWE at WWF at the time when you were there, that this helping to kind of change and grow the sport towards the future?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's very important to show talent, and dark, and even Dynamite and Elevation has been able to bring in people that we have thus signed. We brought Eddie Kingston in. Eddie Kingston wrestled on Dynamite against Cody out of the independents. Eddie was busted and broke and made such a showing that we hired him. We hired Ricky Starks. We've hired a lot of other people that you've seen on Dark. That gives them a chance to prove themselves in front of the EVPs and Tony Khan and the fans. It's just it's a good way. Not only that, it's a good way for them to learn the business. Back in the day, I say back in the day, not that long ago, let's say pre AEW, you would learn your craft by working house shows. The more you wrestle and the more you get in the ring, the better you are, the more you learn. It's kind of on the job learning with wrestling. It really is. Mm-hmm. And we don't have that now. There's no more house shows. The pandemic helped in those, but we were even started before the pandemic in 2019, and we weren't running house shows then. So I think those are very, very important to make your wrestling better. And I think we need to do more of them. In other words, I don't necessarily mean we need to do more TV shows. Oh God, please no more. I don't. I don't.
It's a lot more work for you.
Yes, exactly.
No more TV.
No, yeah. But I just think it's important to have to wrestle. God, kids these days just don't get the learning experience, Chris. That they used to, and that's how you learn is to wrestle. Not to go into a gym and hit the ropes and do a headlock and have a trainer tell you what to do, but to wrestle. Go on the road, learn how to get up in the morning after you've traveled, get up in the morning and work out, and go to the arena and learn that lifestyle, because it's all a part of becoming a pro wrestler that we don't have anymore.
Now, speaking of lifestyle, the Four Horsemen were very big back in the 80s during your time with Jim Crockett Promotions. Ric Flair, those guys, they lived the lifestyle. They lived it. What made that group, those guys, and also Dusty Rhodes, who feuded with them so much, what made them stand out, especially in the state of North Carolina? Because it seemed like anywhere else they went, they may have been the quote unquote bad guys, but in the state of North Carolina, the Four Horsemen were loved. What made it so? What made those guys so special compared to others in this area in North Carolina?
Well, first of all, in North Carolina, Dennis, is because Ric Flair was such a fixture here.
Mm-hmm.
and they knew he was based in North Carolina and had lived there. And again, he was kind of an extension of Crockett Promotions in many ways. When the Horsemen came about, when we went to TBS in 1985, near the end of 1985, after Starrcade of 85, The Gathering, Arn Anderson said on TV, "We are the Four Horsemen of Wrestling." And that stuck at the end of 85. 86 is where the Horsemen kind of were born and became a household word, if you can use that term. The reason they became such an iconic part of the Carolinas was Ric Flair. The reason they became so famous, not only because they could wrestle, but because they could talk. And I've said this over and over again. We've got right now with us Taz's son Hook, who has become a big star.
Yeah,
in 2 matches.
Yes, in 2 matches. He'll have we're recording this on a Friday. He'll have his 3rd match coming up on Rampage. So, but for him to get over that hump, he's got to be able to talk. You have to be able to talk. And that's why the Horsemen were so tremendous. Ric Flair could talk. Tully could talk. Arn was great. Ole Anderson was wonderful. And that was the basis. Those were the bases of the Four Horsemen. Dusty was one of the greatest interviewers ever. Those guys, that's the way to get over, is to be able to do, as we say, a promo. And I really think that's another thing too. Not enough guys get a chance to do a promo. So that's why they were so big. And that's why they were so big in the Carolinas, I think, because of Flair.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see what's going to happen in Raleigh. Dennis and I were in Greensboro, so we're definitely going to be in Raleigh to see what's happening. And it was amazing to see Sting at 60, whatever he is, go off the top rope like that.
That's something.
Still,
wow.
I didn't expect that.
I know. I've stopped asking him how he is, because I know he's either going to be tell me he's fine, or he's going to limp away into the sunset. But that's a tribute, a credit to being in great shape throughout your career, staying in great shape, having a good lifestyle. He's done that. And he is such a wonderful person in real life. And I'm very fortunate. I've gotten to know him as a wrestler and a person as well. And I hope to see him in Raleigh. I think it'll be great. And I'm sure we will. It's going to be a big event for us.
Well,
Do the Wolfpack play PNC too?
Yes, the men's basketball team does. Yes.
Okay. Here's hoping they beat the Tar Heels.
Well, actually, they recorded this Friday. Yesterday, the women's team, they play at Reynolds Coliseum. They actually played UNC and they won, I think, 72-45 NC State. Wow. So they still play at Reynolds. The women's team does.
How about that?
And you should go check it out when you're here. They completely revamped and redid Reynolds, so it's a much different look inside than what it used to be. It really does look great. So I actually probably something you want to go check out when you're here in Raleigh. I do have one final quick question for you. I know you are a video game fan and a Batman fan. What is your favorite Batman Arkham series game?
Well, I'm playing the trilogy. You know, I've stopped all 3 of them because there's a couple levels I can't get through.
Yeah, there's some hard levels.
Which one has the Batmobile?
I think that might be Origins.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Okay.
So I've stopped playing those. Okay. But as you can tell, my whole office is Batman motif. But right now I'm on Gran Turismo.
Oh, okay.
And I've spent hours and hours and hours. For an old guy, staying up all night playing video games, as my wife says, is freaking stupid. Okay. But I'm playing Gran Turismo, and I had just beaten Red Dead Redemption 2, just finished the game. Okay. And that took months to finish that game. And there's a movie coming out, and man, I played all the video games and I can't even remember the name of it, with Nathan and Sully, and the kid that plays Spider-Man is going to play Nate.
Oh yeah, Tom Holland. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it too. But anyway, I just
keep wanting to call it entrapment, but it's not entrapment. But he's like a treasure hunter, like Lara Croft is. But he's a guy. Yeah.
The Arkham City. The second game of that trilogy was fantastic.
Okay.
That was my favorite one. I figured I'd just throw that out there and ask.
Yeah, I listen. In my age, I give up on video games very quickly. I'll go, the hell with that. I got to move on to something else. I got so many games I've never played that I just downloaded because
I've pretty much done that my entire life. Video games.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, my final question was, I don't know if you were the type to hang out with the boys afterwards, but what was your favorite maybe bar to hang out at in North Carolina between Charlotte, Greensboro, and Raleigh back in the day?
I was a married man, Chris. I never hung out at a bar in North Carolina. I always went home.
Okay. Good.
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Good.
There you go.
Well, I was going to say, if we weren't going through this pandemic right now, I'd invite you out after AEW when it comes to town, just to have some time with you. And because first off, I just want to say I appreciate you growing up. I was born in '86, so WCW was really instrumental for me as a wrestling fan. And then also, you were one of my favorite broadcasters, and so I would like to give you your flowers because you're also one of the reasons why I'm in broadcasting. So thank you so much for your influence and everything. And it's good to finally get a chance to interview you, and hopefully one day I'll get a chance to meet you and there's no pandemic happening.
Yeah, me too. And thanks for sharing that with me. I hear it a lot from people that quote, people will come up to me and say, I know you've heard this a lot, and I hope you don't mind me saying, but you're the voice of my childhood. And I say, you know what? I don't mind that. I appreciate that. I really do. And it means a lot to me that if by my announcing, I got other people into announcing. Announcing is not, as you guys know, not an easy profession. I worked for, between I was out of wrestling for 18 years, and I worked for radio stations prior to getting into wrestling. And then I worked for radio stations and radio networks after wrestling. It's a thankless business. And it's when I've got a son who's a producer at Fox News in New York City. He produces one of their TV shows. And when he wanted to get into the business, to the broadcasting business, he asked me any advice. And I went, stay out of it. There's a lot of bad people wrestling. In it. A lot of like wrestling. There's a lot of any business that and any business has a lot of egos, and TV and broadcasting and wrestling has a lot of egos, can be a challenge. And you got to be prepared mentally, and you have to have a pretty good maturity level to hang in there. And so I don't advise for anybody, but congratulations to both of you guys for being in it. Hope you stick in it. Hope the Tar Heels lose their next game. I'm going to get some hate on this. And also, hello to my friends at Durham Bulls Athletic Park. You are still the most iconic baseball, minor league baseball team in the nation, whatever that freaking means. Okay.
Oh, that's funny you say that because we work for the company that owns the team. That owns it. Yeah. It makes it better. Yes, you're the voice of our childhood. Again, I was born in '86 like Chris. I'll never forget when Hulk Hogan joined with Hall and Nash, and you told Hulk Hogan to go to hell. Yeah. Go straight to hell.
Oh, man.
My friends and I still joke it out at each other. Anytime someone said something like, you can go to hell. Go straight to hell.
That's a backstage joke at AEW right now.
Is it?
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers say, Schiavone, you can go to hell. And I'll go straight to hell. Okay.
You know what? Because of that, I felt that way about Hogan because he was my childhood hero, and then that happened. And then one of my best memories too is Fall Brawl '97, LJVM Coliseum, the Imposter Sting, and I was just so worried that Sting was going to do the same thing, and luckily he didn't for me. So that's one of the things that stand out.
Wow, the impact we had on you kids. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll see you in Raleigh, from afar, but looking forward to AEW. If you guys are listening to this now, you can still get your tickets, AEWtix.com, PNC Arena, January 12th. It's going to be a great time. Dennis and I were in Greensboro. We had a great time. You'll definitely have a great time in Raleigh as well. Thank you so much, Tony Schiavone.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Dennis. Thank you for having me.
Yep. All right, we want to thank AEW and also Tony Schiavone for allowing that interview to happen. AEW, first off, has been very generous with the folks they've been allowing us to interview. Matt Hardy, Tony Khan, Tony Schiavone. This has been really big for us, a really nice stretch, and it was kind of cool to talk not kind of cool, it's very cool to talk to Tony Schiavone and to also hear about all of the connections he's had to North Carolina. I didn't realize that his connections were that deep. I knew he used to live in North Carolina, but I didn't realize that like his wife Lois is also a Spartan along with me. That blew my mind. That was great.
Yeah. And you know what, Tony Schiavone, just another great person from the state of Virginia that is making their name for themselves in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
I can resonate with that, Chris.
I can too. My mom is that person.
Exactly. You know, it's interesting because Tony Schiavone, where he grew up, Craigsville, Virginia, from where I grew up in Crozet, Virginia, 30, 40 minutes apart. It literally was the next county over. It's like going from Wake County over into Durham County. That's basically what it was. It's just the next county over. So really awesome talking to Tony Schiavone and just hear him reflect on talking about people like Woody Durham, his time coming up, with Gwinnett Stripers to play the Durham Bulls, and just his hatred towards UNC Tar Heels and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that he's just still entrenched, even though he doesn't live here in this state anymore, that he was just so entrenched in this state in so many different ways. And
he wants to live in Raleigh too. That's the interesting
I know. Yeah, and also he as well, just the fact that he brought up WREL Studios and just all those kinds of things and what Jim Crockett Promotions did in this state. I think we should definitely talk to David Crockett at some point. We should definitely try and get that set up. But just how he's just saying like all these different territories and what made the Greensboro Coliseum so special. We've talked about this in the past when our episode with Tony Khan, when AEW was going to Greensboro, about what makes the Greensboro Coliseum so special in the South. It was the big place. And that's what like, if you want to go watch the big wrestling events, you went to Greensboro. Like you just knew it's like, oh, wrestling's in Greensboro Coliseum. That's a big time show.
And, outside of that, hearing the stories, especially with the first Starrcade and a few others that happened in Greensboro, it wasn't just the 20,000 people that were sitting inside of the arena. Mm-hmm. There used to be an auditorium next to the Greensboro Coliseum called the War Memorial Auditorium. Used to sit about, I want to say 8,000 people. And they've since torn that auditorium down, but I've seen concerts there. I've seen, like comedy shows there. I think I've been on stage there before because of a step show that I helped to host. It's an iconic place. That place also used to sell out because it was a spillover for folks that couldn't get inside of the arena. They put up a big screen and you were just sitting watching what was happening next door in another building on a big screen. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like, so if the Greensboro Coliseum could have held 30,000, they would have sold it out in the 80s every single time for Starrcade and for those other big events. So Greensboro is definitely an iconic place. And Tony Schiavone got his feet wet in Greensboro at that time and saw some of his first big time wrestling there as well.
Yeah, and working in minor league baseball, which is something we've talked about in previous episodes about how big minor league baseball is in the state. Working in Greensboro, then obviously going to Charlotte. Then we was calling games for the Gwinnett Stripers, coming up to Durham to play the Bulls. So just so many fantastic memories that he has from this state. And it's neat seeing with Tony Schiavone, two of the biggest things entertainment wise, sports and entertainment wise in this state are professional wrestling and minor league baseball. And he's had his hands in both of those because we talked about how big minor league baseball is in this state and how fun it is. And then just again, obviously we've talked many times about pro wrestling. He's had his hands in both in very, very major ways. And by the way, I do have to appreciate his shots taken at Durham Bulls and the whole thing with Durham. I was like, bravo.
And the Tar Heels and a small shot taken at Raleigh.
Yeah, exactly. That's what.
But he loves Raleigh though.
Exactly, he loves it. But that's the thing. It's just that he still has that fun. That's that fun with it. It's really was. It was a special moment for us to talk to him. We were both born in '86. Chris, you're slightly older than me, even though I have more gray hair.
I'm the eldest.
Yeah, you are the eldest, even though I might look a little older. But just he was that voice for us growing up, and it was a special interview to talk to him. And it's the history in this state. Just the more we learn, the more I learn, the more I love and appreciate.
Same here. I mean, I'm from here, and so it's good to always learn and hear the new things, and because there's a whole lifetime of things, lots of lifetimes of things that happened before we were even thought of. So it's cool to hear about that history and how it set up to where things are now. And if you guys are listening to this or watching this on YouTube in the first 3 days of this coming out, and you want to go see AEW, they will be in Raleigh, North Carolina at PNC Arena Wednesday, January 3rd. Everything starts at 7 o'clock. It's a good time. Dennis and I just went to the event in Greensboro just 3 weeks ago. We've both been to an AEW event in Charlotte. And I felt like, I went in 2019. I felt like this was better than the one I saw in 2019. And I feel like Raleigh has a chance to be better than what I just saw 3 weeks ago in Greensboro. So it's good wrestling. It's a good time. And if you can't make it in person because of COVID protocols, because those are things that people are really dealing with right now, watch AEW Dynamite on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and also Rampage on I think it's going to be, it's going to be on TBS now.
Yes.
AEW Dynamite on TBS Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and then AEW Rampage on TNT at 10 o'clock on Friday.
That's right. And you can watch them for free. If you get like the TNT, TBS apps, you can watch it for free, which is pretty awesome too. So guess what? It's free entertainment because everyone loves free entertainment. Again, if you just love live entertainment, whether it's concerts, sporting events, theater, whatever it is, come to a pro wrestling event, come to an AEW event. I guarantee you don't really need to know a whole lot of what's going on, but I guarantee you will have a good time.
Absolutely.
And come let us know that you're there because we'd love to see you.
And the way you could do that, you could follow us on Twitter. I'm at Chris Lee TV. He's at The Fan Rookie. And we're also at Culture State Pod. Same thing on Instagram. So make sure you follow us. And, if we see you or if you see us, give us a nice little fist bump.
Yep. And by the way, as well, Chris, to get ready for Wednesday night, Tuesday, pick up a large Papa Murphy's pizza, just $10.99 at any Papa Murphy's location when you order online. So make sure you go check out Papa Murphy's. Change the way you pizza.
Absolutely. Dennis, it's been a great week. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, sir.
The Culture State Podcast, part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows coming out every Wednesday. Download and subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, including the WREL Sports Fan app.